Welcome in to the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. We're glad to have you here with us, joining us on this fine Tuesday evening. Joey and I are recording this podcast. We're on the Tuesdays now since Ahsoka is no longer coming out week to week. We're gonna miss it a lot, but in tonight's episode, we're gonna be talking not only about our thoughts on Ahsoka, but taking a look back at our reactions in a previous podcast episode our thoughts from a previous podcast episode and reacting to them ourselves in the current time. It's going to be fun. I'm sure it will be interesting. Some of the things we said a few weeks ago. Before we get into all of that, if you are not yet subscribed to the Hoth Hangout podcast on YouTube, definitely check us out there. Hit that subscribe button. We want to say thank you to the 339 of you that are currently subscribed over on YouTube. Additionally, you can always email us. hothhangout@gmail.com is where we are reachable. Shoot us your Star Wars questions. Shoot us any other questions you may have. We'd love to hear from you, and then we can display some of those questions on the pod and talk about them here in this format. So hothhangout@gmail.com. Additionally, if you are an audio podcast listener, you can always listen to the Hoth Hangout podcast on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you leave a 5-star review if you are listening to the audio version, and check us out on the socials, including TikTok, Instagram, and X.
X.
At Hoth Hangout XX at Hoth Hangout on each of those. Joey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing well. The Chicago Marathon actually just passed over the
I know,
weekend.
I
if
saw
you
that,
didn't
yeah.
saw, yeah, and that's something that you and I have done in the past, but never together. So I don't know. We can start training for 2024. I think
Yes.
we have enough time to do that if you wanted.
I'd be down. And then as soon as we cross the finish line, we go up to the hotel room and we do a live recording when we've just run 26 miles.
Both of us laying on the floor. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be good.
I'll be asleep 5 minutes in. I don't know about you. Well, as was mentioned, about 5 or 6 episodes back of the podcast. Actually, it's even more than that now. What would it be? 8 or 9 episodes.
Yeah.
Episode 45 of the Hoth Hangout podcast, we gave our preview and our thoughts before the Ahsoka show came out as to some of the things that we were hypothesizing might be a part of this season. And so today we're going to be talking about a few of those and listening to and reacting to some of the things we said. But before we get into some of that stuff, we have just a short, quick bit of news. One of the main pieces of Star Wars information that came out within the past week, there was some breaking news on Skeleton Crew, which may or may not be the next Star Wars show to come out. It's looking like it will be the case that this will come out before The Acolyte. There was an updated synopsis that was provided for the Skeleton Crew. And now I know we talked about Skeleton Crew maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago on the podcast. And correct me if I'm wrong, this new synopsis doesn't seem that much different than the old one.
Right.
The new synopsis being in the first episode of the Skeleton Crew, we are introduced to 4 kids who make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet and get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home, meeting unlikely allies and enemies will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. And maybe just a little bit more detailed and specifically focusing in on the first episode. Is there anything here that strikes you as different from what we already knew, or maybe just extra information? I'm not sure.
Not really. I mean, the interesting piece of it was, since it was from the copyright site, the government copyright
Mhm.
site, it shows a little bit of information of that. It shows the estimated date of completion to be December of 2023. Now, I don't know if that means production or finalizing the all the post production work that has to be done with it, or if that's actually when it's supposed to be live. I This is the first time I've ever looked at that copyright site. So to see that, that may have been the intent, that initially this was supposed to be a December 2023 release. But with the actor strike, with the writer strike, I don't know if that has changed things as much. So it's more an interesting fact that we learned about the show, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. Hopefully it does, because something like this does sound like a nice, comfy, cozy Christmas type of show to watch. Little Goonies and Star Wars, if you will. So I'm down for it.
Oh, man, I would love to watch some Skeleton Crew on the couch over Christmas break. That does sound
Right?
nice.
Yeah,
How do you
seriously.
think this show will compare to Andor? Because I feel like the
Mhm.
sort of the lack of hype surrounding it going into it, when you compare it to something like Ahsoka, do you think that means people will kind of favor it more than, because I feel like people are very divided on Ahsoka. Skeleton Crew,
Surprisingly, yes, but, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but I think Skeleton Crew is gonna be one of these fly under the radar Andor type series, just kinda what you were alluding to, because of the non-hype it's getting, and
right?
whatever fun, whatever happiness we get from this particular show, it's just gonna be all, it's all gravy at that point. It's all Christmas gravy.
And I love Jude Law too, so,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm excited for this show, I really am. I still feel like I don't know a ton about it, and I'm okay with that, so,
Yeah,
um,
mhm.
the rumor is this might be coming out in January of 2024, but like you said, we'll have to see. Nothing official yet in regards to a release date. Hopefully, we get that information soon, though. For our next little piece of, I don't know if we want to call it news or not, but Joey and I are going to do something a little bit more on the fun side here to begin things before we actually take a look at some of the things we said a few weeks ago in regards to Ahsoka. We are going to each take an Ahsoka quiz to see which character we are from the show. And so this is something we'll do live here, and I believe we're going to do one by one of us after the other. Uh, Joey, would you like to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You can go first, and then I'll try to figure out what I wanna do based off of your answers.
Okay. The, the funny thing about these quizzes is always like, the answers feel a little bit too on the nose sometimes.
Mhm.
They're like, which of these would you like? And then it's like
Uh
Leku. You're like, oh well, that one's Ahsoka.
Right, yeah.
All right, the first question: what type of traveler are you? A homebody, explorer, adventurer, camper, glamper? What's a glamper?
Like a glorious camper.
Oh,
Like
oh, oh.
like you're
Okay.
not in a tent, but, like, in a nice hotel, essentially,
Right,
or
right, right.
something like that.
Uh, planner, flying by the seat of my pants. Family vacations are my favorites. Uh, ooh, that's tough. I'll go adventurer for the first one.
Okay.
All right. What's the first thing you pack for a trip? My favorite shirt, comfortable shoes, headphones, identification, sunscreen, swimsuit, camera, gear, a good book. First thing I pack for a trip. I'm between my favorite shirt and headphones. I'll go headphones though.
Okay.
This is a 5 question quiz, is that right?
No, I think it's 15, so we're gonna go for
15.
it,
Oh
yeah,
man. All
yeah.
right. I'll fly through these nice ones. What's the last thing you pack just before you head out of the door? Wallet, keys, toothbrush, extra jacket, sunglasses, chapstick, hat, phone charger. Ooh.
Ooh.
See, I'm a. Hmm. I already packed the hat, so I'll go phone charger.
Nice.
Question 4. What mode of transportation is best? On
Hmm,
foot, horseback, tandem bike, pedicab, sports car, minivan, train, plane. Oh man. I love flying so much. I'm gonna do plane.
okay.
Question 5. Where would you go on your dream vacation? Hawaii, Paris, Iceland, New York City, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, Peru. Ooh. Can I do like a 2 for 1 between Australia and New Zealand?
That's just for Gibbo.
Um,
I know you're just trying to kiss up to Gibbo.
yeah. I'm gonna I'm gonna go New Zealand,
Oh
because I think that's where the Lord of the Rings was filmed, and I would
my
love to see
god.
some of the scenery
He's
in New Zealand.
he's gonna
I
quit.
know
He's
I know
gonna quit, Ben.
Gibbo's
Oh
upset
god.
now. Question 6, pick a second destination to add to the itinerary. Wait, now Australia is not even an option. The second destination options are Alaska, Italy, the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Jordan, New England, Brazil, and Singapore. Have you ever been to Singapore?
I have not.
I haven't either. My parents were there on their honeymoon. They said it's the cleanest country they've ever been to.
Ooh,
Um, man, this is tough. I am gonna go. Like Italy is so cool. I want to go to Italy.
nice.
I think this is question 7. What type of activity are you most looking forward to doing? Relaxing, exercising, napping, sightseeing, reading, swimming, painting, trying new foods.
Ooh.
Oh, trying new foods, baby.
I like that one.
Question 8. Which Star Wars character would be an ideal travel buddy? I'm probably going to pick Grogu, but let's see what else is on here. Grogu, Captain Rex, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Nubs.
Nubs.
I, I love that they threw Nubs on here from Young Jedi Adventures, for those that don't know what the reference there is. Leia Organa or R2-D2, Darth Vader, and Chewbacca. I'm going Grogu. I feel like
Yeah.
that's I gotta go Grogu. I think this is question 9. In
Yeah,
real
9.
life, who is your ideal travel buddy? My partner, my best friend, my core friend group, my parents, my children, my siblings, my pets, myself. Ooh, that's tough. I'm I am such a loner when it comes to most things, so I
Mhm.
kinda wanna pick myself. Uh, I'm gonna pick myself.
Yep, I like it.
What type of music would you play for the journey? Jazz, rock, country, metal, pop, techno, classical, or hip hop? For the journey? Let's go rock music. What stresses you out about a trip? Oh, lots of stuff. Safety, staying within budget, time constraints, fear of flying, losing important documents, forgetting essentials, getting lost, traveling solo. Mine is more like the planning side of it.
Mm.
I'm gonna say, um, forgetting essentials, I guess? We'll go with that one. Which activity would make for an unforgettable trip? Skydiving, a wild animal safari, chasing the northern lights, exploring ancient cities, observing classical art, dining at a world-class restaurant, watching the sunrise over a new landscape, seeing an incredible live music event. Ah, man, a wild animal safari sounds really cool. I'm gonna do that one.
Nice.
What type of souvenir would you want to bring back? Photographs, memories, jewelry, recipes, local art, new stories to tell, stronger bonds, a trophy?
Hmm,
I think memories. I'm gonna go with memories.
nice.
How do you spend most of your time on vacation? Is this the second to last question?
Yeah, looks like.
Okay. Creating memories with family and friends, experiencing other cultures, learning about history, sitting quietly in nature alone, walking through nature with friends, learning more about myself, sleeping, catching up on TV. Low key, I am a little bit of a catching up on TV in the hotel room kind of a person.
Yeah, you are.
But I'll go experiencing, actually no, creating memories with family and friends. I like
That's
that
nice.
one a lot. Yeah. All right, and I think this is my last question. What is your main
Yes.
reason for taking this trip? Escape day-to-day responsibilities, reconnecting with friends, learning to relax more, learning about the world, reconnecting with family, giving myself time to have fun. It's a calling. I feel most at home while traveling.
Hmm,
Um, Between learning about the world and giving myself time to have fun, I'm gonna do learning about the world. Look who I got.
oh my g are you
Let's
kidding me?
go.
Who'd you get? Let everyone know on the
I
audio.
I got Balin Skull. This is such a great quiz. I'm so happy.
Read the
Uh,
description too.
the description is you've reinvented yourself a time or two, weathering countless obstacles to become the person you are today. But lately, you've become more of a mentor and teacher, helping the next generation to break free from expectations. Now that you know which character from Ahsoka you are, find out how you rank among the storied heroes of Star Wars. Oh man, Joey,
Nice
I could
one.
not have gotten anything better, I don't
That
think.
is crazy. You definitely I think you took this quiz already, and then you knew the answers to get Balin. There's no
I'm
shot that you
actually
got that.
so hyped that I got Balin.
That is the craziest.
All right, I'm ready to see who you get as well.
Alright, let's see, alright. What type of traveler I'm not gonna read all of them, I'm just gonna read the answer that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
pick
go
here,
for it.
so
Yeah.
alright, so what type of traveler are you? I would say I'm a adventurer. Alright, on to number 2. What is the first thing you pack for a trip? My favorite shirt.
Nice. I almost picked that one.
What's the last thing you pack, for, just before you head out the door? Mm, I would say sunglasses.
That's a good one, yeah.
What mode of transportation is best? That would be I'm a family man, it's the minivan.
Nice.
Where would you go on your dream vacation? It's Australia. You can click yeah, he had it on there already before I could do anything. Second destination to the itinerary. Ooh, I'm gonna say Singapore. I'm gonna say Singapore.
Nice.
You sold me on that one. What type of activity are you looking forward to do most? Swimming or sightseeing? Oh, let's see. Or trying new food. Yeah, trying new foods. I forgot that one was
Yes,
in there.
foods,
Yep, trying
foods,
new
foods.
foods. Which Star Wars character would be ideal travel buddy? I'm gonna say Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Ooh,
I think he'd be a cool person to go with.
nice.
In real life, who is your ideal travel buddy? I'm kind of selfish myself, so we're gonna go
Yeah,
with
I'm
myself
the
as well.
same. I'm the same. I love traveling by myself.
uh, what type of music would you play on the journey? It'd be hip hop.
I almost picked that.
What stresses you out by about a trip? Uh, I would say safety. Safety would be mine. This is number 12. Which activity would make for an unforgettable trip? Ooh, the Northern Lights. I'm gonna go chasing the Northern Lights. That sounds like a cool experience. What type of souvenir would you bring back? New stories to tell. If you know me, I love telling stories. Second last one. How will you spend most of your time on vacation? Oh boy. Uh, Gosh, if I'm by myself already, learning more about myself sounds like the actual the only answer for me here. And what is your main reason to take a trip? Let's see. Giving myself time to have fun. Giving myself time to have fun. Yes. That would be my final answer. Who do we have? That was the last
Who do you
question.
wanna be here is the
Oh
question.
gosh. I'm Hu
Oh,
Yang!
nice.
That's cool too. You love storytelling, yeah, like I said, and you have an appreciation for history, which means you are often reminding your friends of past lessons. Although this may not always be valued, they know you mean well and you're there to help them. Wow. That's actually right on point with me. I like that. I like it.
Nice. Ooh,
So you and me are
yang.
Balin and Hu Yang.
Those are
We're
those are
gonna
those are pretty spot on. I wanna see
yeah.
what the full list of potential options was and what like,
Mhm.
who's the worst possible
Right,
thing you
yeah.
could get, like,
Right.
one of the Noti turtles, I don't know.
Yeah. I think we yeah, or Merrick maybe, Merrick or
Yeah, yeah.
uh grandmother number 2. Yeah. I think we need to have
Well,
a Gibbo take it as well at some point so we can find out what
yeah,
who's his character is as well.
yeah. And if anyone also is listening or watching and is interested in taking the quiz, we'll link the link to the quiz in the YouTube show notes down below if you're interested in finding out which Ahsoka character you are. Lastly, before we get into our reactions from our episode 45 of the podcast titled "Everything We Want in Ahsoka Season 1," we have a couple comments from various viewers from the past week's episode. The first of which comes from Spy on Sports, one of the two winners of the Star Wars box break from the previous week.
GG.
Jeez. Spy on Sports actually had 3 comments here, and so the first one says, sort of Towson, and I actually have to, like, admit that I'm pretty sure I was saying this wrong for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think I was saying
Lane
Townsend.
Townsend, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you were too
It's
as
the
well.
sort of Townsend. I feel like I've heard this pronounced several different ways, including Townsend, which always makes me imagine Pete Townsend of The Who swinging a sword instead of a guitar. So yeah, I gotta like be the first to raise my hand there and say I was definitely pronouncing that wrong. I need to go back and watch Clone Wars. That's the other thing that
Mhm.
tells me is I haven't watched Clone Wars in a few years.
Too long.
Yeah. The Sword of Townsend, not the Sword of Townsend. Next, Spy on Sports says it'd be interesting to do an episode with a guest that didn't watch Rebels and Clone Wars to get their perspective and frustrations. I could not agree more, and I think this is probably where a lot of the disagreements within the community, the Star Wars community surrounding Ahsoka comes from, is that there are people who have a better sense of some of the stuff going on because of their
Mhm.
prior watching of these other shows. And then there's people who are coming in, having not seen any animated Star Wars before and, kind of just being forced to
Mhm.
accept certain things that have never been seen in live action.
I think also that there's a little bit of both too, where there are people that have seen those shows and still kind of didn't like the Ahsoka too.
Yeah,
So I mean, there's
definitely.
definitely it's definitely across the board there, which is surprising to me. But that's what's great about Star Wars is that you don't have to everyone have to like the same thing, and you could
Yeah.
have your opinions and but I would be very interested to hear other people's takes on the show that didn't particularly enjoy it as much as we did.
Yeah, definitely. And that may be something we still actually end up doing in the coming weeks. We've got the first steps, the first phases sort of in place for putting together some sort of roundtable discussion, perhaps
Yeah.
in regards to gathering people with various perspectives on that. So that might actually be something we look into and do here on the podcast. And then lastly, Spy on Sports says series overall 7 out of 10 for now. Planning a binge rewatch soon. That's also
And that's what.
true. Sometimes when you
Mhm.
watch the episode, like the show through from beginning to end after it's over, you do
Mhm.
develop a different perspective on it because you're
Right.
watching it just back to back to back
Mhm.
as opposed to week to week. So,
But I
um,
will say props to Spy on Sports because they have been a critic of Ahsoka for a good portion of it,
mhm.
but they're still willing to one give it a pretty. I mean, 7 out of 10 isn't terrible, and also willing to rewatch it all too. So props to them to giving it another shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I could not agree more. 7 out of 10 honestly is not that bad of a score, and I think I feel like it tends to be a thing where we hear a lot about negativity
Hmm.
within the Star Wars community, and so it's funny, after our watchings, like, if you would have asked me on the spot after episode 8 to rank the season, I probably would have, and I think I still would say 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I'm blinded by my love for the character of Ahsoka, maybe a little bit, but then it was odd to, like, go on social media and see, like, videos on YouTube of people being like, "This is like a 2 out of 10. This is like, how
Hmm.
could they do this?" And I'm like, "Man, it's crazy how, like, different people could watch the same thing and come to, such vastly different conclusions."
Star Wars does that to people.
Yes. But yes, thank you to Spy on Sports for those comments. And then our second commenter we wanted to highlight is actually the other winner of the Star Wars box break from the previous week, Lord Galvatron. Lord Galvatron has two comments here. The first of which says, "I've been seeing this theory all over TikTok, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Balin is not looking for the father, the son, or the daughter. He is looking for the mother being Abeloth, one of the darkest and most evil beings in the galaxy." And I know we've talked about Abeloth a little bit here on the podcast, I think, but for anyone watching or listening, and you're like, "What the heck is Abeloth?" It's basically in Legends Star Wars content this evil, dark presence who she was like arguably the most powerful being in the galaxy, and so this has never been included in canon in any way, shape, or form, but
Mm.
a lot of this people are feeling like all the mystic Peridia stuff is hinting towards Abeloth potentially. So it's a possibility. Will they go that direction exactly? I My best guess would be no, but I would still love to see it. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it brings in one thing it does is that it would for the fans of Legends EU, it sounds like, because that's where that originates from, right?
Hmm.
Um, that would make a lot of people happy. So
Yeah,
but that's of course the theory, and that's but yeah, I mean, it would be great if they did it because they already gave a little bit for them with the reference to heir to the empire and all that, right? So I think it's just if they were to go all the way in on this, I would be shocked, but hey, I'm here for it. I would not mind it at all.
yeah. I'm worried that we won't get a lot of answers to the father, son, daughter stuff in season 2, or maybe at least the initial parts of season 2, partially because, we can assume, I guess, that we won't see Ray Stevenson in the role of Balin. Perhaps we
Mhm,
won't even see Balin as a character anymore in the Ahsoka show, so,
mhm,
that's a piece of it, and then just I feel like they're going to want to draw out the most mysterious part of the show as long as they can, and so I've also seen theories actually that Ahsoka is the daughter now, and Anakin is the
Yeah, I've seen that as
father,
well. Yeah.
and that Balin might be the son. There's like all these wild theories going around, and
Yep.
so
That's why we love it, though.
yeah, it is fun to read those and get some feedback on them and see what people think. But if you're asking me, I have no idea.
Yeah. Right.
Lord Galvatron also said, "I love the series. It's my favorite, and in my opinion, the best live action Disney Plus Star Wars show. 9 out of 10 rating is simply to leave room for improvement because, like most things, this show is not perfect, but oh boy, was it good." I would say, just on a personal note, if I had to convey my own sentiments about the show, this probably most closely reflects my feelings on Ahsoka. I do think it is my favorite live action Star Wars show,
Yeah. Hmm.
which is saying something because I love The Mandalorian. I love most of the shows they've made. Um, but yeah, this one, my favorite so far, if I had to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say my favorite too. There wasn't a lot of me saying with the other series, Mandalorian, Kenobi, Boba Fett. There were moments where I'm like, "Oh, I guess that could happen," you know? There were I didn't find myself having to make excuses too much here. Maybe here or there, but it was very infrequent and not as like high vol. It wasn't like I didn't have to do it as much. So
Mhm.
I feel like I didn't have to defend this show as much as I did with the others. So I know that's not a great way to judge a show necessarily, but I think yeah, I definitely enjoyed it most out of the what we've had so far.
It's also interesting because a major criticism of any Star Wars show is largely dependent upon where you're coming from in terms of your own desire of what to see in the show. So,
Mm,
for example, like a ton of people loved the first season of Mando because it wasn't about anything other, like within the world of Star Wars. Like it was its own thing that didn't feel connected.
right.
And that aspect of it made a lot of people love it. And then there are people who are like, well, we want to see the other stuff in Star Wars. So that's why we didn't like Mando season one as much.
Mhm,
And so
mhm,
then when
mhm.
they put stuff like that, like Luke Skywalker in season two, you have the people who wanted it saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is great. But you also have people who wanted it to be its own thing saying, well, why did you have to make this about Jedi? So it's largely
Yeah, yeah.
dependent upon where you're coming from as a Star Wars fan. And that
Mhm.
doesn't mean one side is right and one side is wrong. It just means that,
Yeah, yeah.
people have different things they want from shows. So, um, like Spy on Sports and Lord Galvatron are two great examples of that. Had differing opinions on kind of the outcome of Ahsoka, but both were, um, you know, providing us comments there, and we're very appreciative of the fact of gaining that insight and feedback on some of their thoughts on the show. So, thank you again to the both of them, and then lastly, we do want to highlight a comment from Aunt Vasuvi.
Vasily!
Aunt
We need a we
Vasuvi,
need a we need a we need a
yeah,
sound for her, I
soundboard.
think.
Aunt Vasuvi says, "Thanks to Ben, Joey, and Gibbo. Get some sleep, fellas." Of course, referencing the fact that last week's episode we recorded at like 1:30 in the morning. I saw that leaked trailer for the Acolyte. Looks good. Since you asked the Super Night Troopers, according to Wikipedia, they are described as Death Troopers, like from Rogue One, but that might get revised once more info is released. Regarding your query for a numerical rating for Episode 8, it's an 8.5 for me. So again, all three of our commenters
Yeah.
giving slightly different rankings and ratings in regards to the season. Or I guess this here would be the final episode, but
Mhm.
nonetheless, so a little bit of info there on those super night troopers, the undead night troopers, whatever we're
Mhm.
gonna call them. It will be interesting to see how much that's expanded upon in the second season.
Right.
It feels like they should be weaker than a normal night trooper or a normal stormtrooper, but they felt much stronger. And I
Have
don't know
you
if
have you
that was
watched Walking Dead? Those dudes are
yeah,
strong. They could
yeah,
run,
yeah,
they could, tear through, plywood and yeah, so I think that's what they were getting their inspiration from.
yeah. This was just like the last episode of or the last episode of Ahsoka was basically like Star Wars: The Walking Dead. Oh man. Alrighty. Well, are you ready to watch some of our old predictions about Ahsoka and see how much they matched up to actually what came to fruition in the show?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, fun.
All right. Our first, prediction we wanted to watch was surrounding the topic of Thrawn, and so for those watching and listening, we just wanna, say that there's gonna be sort of a little sound effect that'll indicate that it's the original discussion we had that you'll be listening to, and then we'll come back in and we'll give our reactions and our thoughts to what we originally said. So, without further ado, let's take a look back at what we said about our thoughts on Thrawn in Ahsoka.
Do you think the Thrawn piece of it all happens later in the season to help set up for a season 2?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
I I think that is way more likely than Thrawn showing up in episode 1 or episode 2 of the show.
Mhm.
I don't see Thrawn fitting concretely into the early story of season 1. I don't
Mhm.
think season 1 is going to end and it's gonna be, like, resolving anything.
Mhm.
I think it's only going to be building anticipation and excitement for season 2. I'm gonna put it out there now. I don't think we're gonna see a ton of Thrawn in
Yeah.
season 1. I felt like that was pretty spot on. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I thought
Um,
that was a good prediction, good analysis of what to expect.
yeah, if anything, we probably got a little bit more Thrawn than
Mhm.
at that time than I was expecting. I guess
'Cause
what would
when did we first get Thrawn? What was the first episode? Was it episode
I'm
5?
pretty sure pretty think it was episode 6.
Oh, was it 6? Okay.
'Cause episode 5 was all world between worlds stuff, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Or was it the end of episode 5 where he came in? I think it was episode 6. But, regardless, yeah, I mean, not a ton of resolution in the end of
Mhm.
season 1. In fact, we might have maybe more on the table than was beforehand. Like, now Thrawn is an imminent threat, and Ahsoka
Right.
and Sabine are stranded out here with Shin and Balin, and,
Right.
uh,
They just switched
so
spots?
yeah, yeah. The whole first season was a giant switcheroo, and now the
Mhm.
galaxy is more in danger than it was before, so
Right, yeah, 'cause he's actually there, and but we got, I almost said Kanan, rest in peace. But we do have Ezra back with Hera, which is nice, and
it's
you have
true.
that. So, getting that group back together, we know Zeb's around somewhere, and, I mean, we got Captain Carson there as well, so I think they're in good shape.
Yeah, I feel like we're definitely gonna see Zeb in season 2. At least I'm
Yes.
hopeful of that fact, but, so to begin, our thoughts on Thrawn seemed pretty spot on.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
yeah, yeah. Moving into our second topic that we are going to react to and review here. We touched on in our episode 45 podcast the topic of the world between worlds and how much that was going to play into this season of Ahsoka. We obviously got one massive episode that was largely centered around the world between worlds. And so let's go ahead and take a moment to look back at what our initial thoughts were before the show regarding the world between worlds. I think this is what I am most hesitant about. What
Mhm.
would really not be great is if they somehow use this world between worlds. I don't think this will happen for the record,
Yeah.
but I don't want them to like leave it too open ended to the point where when season 1 of Ahsoka ends, people are like, well, why don't they do that to save Qui-Gon? And why
Right,
don't they do
right,
that
yeah.
to save Mace Windu? And why don't they
Mhm.
do that to save Anakin? You know what I mean? Okay. This one feels like a little less concrete than the last one.
Right.
I don't feel that way personally after having seen the
Mm-mm.
first season of Ahsoka. I also think the way they chose to portray the world between worlds wasn't as time travel-y as it was
Mhm.
in Rebels. Not that it was
Right.
explicitly time travel in Rebels, but there was more this sense of just almost feeling lost the whole time. Like, how did Ahsoka get here, you know?
Mhm.
It felt more like a dream than this alternate state of reality.
Right.
Um, so I don't have that feeling now thinking like, well, now they could just do this with Qui-Gon,
Right, yeah.
because it really didn't feel like something that Ahsoka did to get to the world between worlds.
Right. She had to fall off a cliff.
Yeah. Right. She kinda
It
just
wasn't
ended up there, yeah.
yeah, and No, it didn't feel like anybody was using it for their own gain.
Mhm.
Like the way that we kind of saw it in Rebels where Ezra almost went into the portal to save Kanan, so to for his own, for his own reason, and that's not what we saw here. We saw the world between worlds almost using Ahsoka and Anakin for the for the reason of the Force. Like she needed to see this. She needed to be able to, come turn into the Ahsoka White. After all of this was done. So I think that from what we were saying there on the episode, it's like a totally different thing to me now. Like the world between worlds is just a this completely different mechanism, and it could be used in so many other different ways that we weren't even aware of. So I that's why I like that.
Yeah, yeah, this was different in a way too, because in every other instance where we've seen the world between worlds in animated Star Wars, it's almost been like someone else reaching in to someone else's past. Like Ezra reaching in, potentially wanting to reach in to save Kanan, doesn't do it. Reaching in to save Ahsoka,
Hmm.
saves her from Vader. And this was more like Ahsoka looking inwardly into her own past. And so it wasn't like she was peering into one of the portals. It was more like she was just
Hmm.
living this past consciousness that she had.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just different, the take they took on it. And I thought it worked pretty well.
Right.
I would be mainly curious to know how people felt about this episode who hadn't seen any Rebels in any Clone Wars.
Hmm.
Because I think this episode, at least on the surface, it feels like the one that might be the most hard to accept, like the idea of what's going on.
Right.
But then again, maybe that's why they took the approach they did, is because they would that feels more approachable and acceptable than like seeing her like go through these portals into, I don't know.
Right.
But ultimately, it didn't change my thinking on how the world between worlds is used as a mechanism in Star Wars, thankfully. So, um, in that regard, I feel like I'm satisfied with the way it was portrayed.
Same.
Our third of our four things we are going to react to and review is probably the most, in terms of just the general Star Wars fandom, the most controversial one. We're going to be discussing the consequences of Sabine being force sensitive. This is something we talked about as a potential possibility back in episode 45 of the Hoth Hangout podcast. And I feel like we weren't too critical and too harsh, but that might be revisionist history. So maybe it'd be better if we just listen into what we had to say ourselves back in episode 45 regarding Sabine's potential force sensitivity. What do you think the consequences of her being force sensitive are?
There are stories in Star Wars where some people like learn all this kind of late. Luke was pretty late in the game. Rey was pretty late in the game. Sabine could be late in the game. That could happen.
I'll I'll go on record by saying I think they're going to surprise us by having her just not be force sensitive, even though they've been hinting at her being force
Right.
sensitive in the trailers.
Okay.
Ooh,
Whoops.
was I wrong? I don't think that was critical. I think I was just
No, no.
like hopeful for a certain outcome, but I'm not mad about the way they
Right.
chose to do it.
I mean, I don't think that's how you and I watch Star Wars with any type of anger.
Right.
There
Yeah.
there are definitely the fans out there that may have gotten upset the first time they saw Sabine even try to do anything Force related in one of the trailers. So I think that's kind of where that stemmed from.
Yeah.
Um, would we? I think in episode 45, I think we were both pretty much saying that we would prefer that she wasn't. But for me, anyway, to see the progression, she had struggles pretty much the entire season, up until the last episode. So where it felt a little bit more earned, if you will, in that way. And I even made a comparison to the Bulls, where not everyone's going to be the Michael Jordan of Jedi's. There's going to be some Scottie Pippins. There's going to be a Bill Cartwright. So Sabine is just, kind of a bench player when it comes to being able to be a force user. That's just kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
So I think we won't, when you said critical, we definitely weren't critical about, our thoughts on her having the force or being able to use the force. But so I think it made it at least for us a better experience because we weren't really like gung ho. She cannot have the force. This is ridiculous. But the fact that she did and the way that they gave it to her, kind of at the end, I think that was a really good way to do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And a quick just message to those people out there who were like really upset at the fact that Sabine is force sensitive. As someone who didn't personally want that going into the season, I can say that I feel okay with it for the reasons that you just said. Like, if you show a natural progression, this is not just Star Wars, this is like storytelling in general. Like, if you show a natural progression of struggle within a character to achieve something, no matter what that is, it makes the final achievement of it more meaningful. And
Mhm.
so if for example, if Sabine would have showed that she could like grab the lightsaber using the Force in the first episode, I think I would have had more issues with that. Because it took her literally the whole season to achieve a small as feat as something like that, it gives more credence to the idea that just like with the progression or with the, you know, just over the course of time, that progression can occur and that the character building can happen that way. And so, um,
Mhm.
as someone who didn't want it, I have no issue with it, and I'm fine with the direction they took on it. And like you said, she's just gonna be like, she's a sit in the bench Jedi. She's not Michael Jordan or anything. So,
Right.
any other thoughts on Sabine that you wanted to touch on before we move to our last uh, prediction review here?
Still love Sabine, that's all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's a fantastic character. And again, just to reiterate something we said every week, I thought the characters who portrayed them in live action were
Mhm.
fantastic. So, our final prediction review that we're going to be doing for this podcast episode, one of the very last things we talked about in episode 45 were the characters we wanted to show up in Ahsoka season one. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the list of characters that you and I talked about that we would hope would show up in the first season of Ahsoka. We could insert anyone into the show. Who would
Mhm.
that be?
Iden Versio from Battlefront 2. She is still around at this point, so I mean, she doesn't have to play a big part. But you know me, I just like it when they cross over into different territories. I did like Janina Gavankar. She's the actress. She's going to be in
Nice.
episode 6.
The two people I picked, though, one of them is kind of a silly one, and the other one is very heavily influenced by a fair amount of fan theory. My silly one is Grogu, and then my more serious one is Barris Offee. A very popular theory that's going around right now. At one point in one or multiple of the Ahsoka trailers, we see what appears to be an Inquisitor, and so I think it'd be really cool to have Barris be this dark side Force user and part of the story for Ahsoka to almost redeem Barriss rather
Hmm.
than, like, defeat her and
Oh,
potentially even
absolutely.
kill her as well. Oh, man. We were 0 for 3, Joey.
Hey, hey, we're not Michael Jordans of predicting either, all right?
Yeah. I guess, I mean, I'll start
And
off by saying
that was the point of that bit was to,
right, yeah.
think out of the box, and we were a little bit too far out of the box.
Too far out of the box. To be fair, there wasn't, like, any characters in this show. Well, I guess C-3PO, that's one that was a genuine
Yeah.
surprise. Other than that, I don't know, like Mon Mothma maybe?
I mean, we that's not a huge surprise either,
Right,
though.
I
I
think
mean,
she
she
was
was
in
in
a
the
she was in the
yeah, she was in the
trailers,
trailer,
yeah.
yeah.
So, no, like, groundbreaking there was pretty good ideas that Anakin was gonna be in it, so it was cool
Mhm.
to see him, but it wasn't like, "Oh, wow, I
Mhm.
didn't expect that at all," sort of thing.
I will say we saw more of him than I thought. I was kind of surprised at the amount of times we saw Anakin because we saw Anakin obviously in the Hollow. We
Uh-huh.
saw him
Yeah.
in the world between worlds, and then we saw him at the end. So,
Right.
and so yeah, it was a good amount of Anakin, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it was pretty fair to assume we might see Ezra at some point, but I don't think he was in any of the trailers or anything like that, so all that to say, like, our outside the box thinking might have been a little bit too far outside the box. And the next question I would pose is, do you think we'll get to see any of those 3 characters we mentioned in the past in the future seasons of Ahsoka?
Yes, absolutely.
On the record,
Absolutely.
stamp it. I actually
All
do
right.
think Grogu might be the most
Mhm.
likely of those 3,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
just because Disney needs to put Grogu in everything, it
I'm
feels like.
actually kinda surprised that he wasn't in here at all.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that's that sort of mindset of being a Star Wars fan who wants things connected to everything or wants things to be completely isolated in terms of storytelling. So, it remains to be seen if we'll get any of our previously mentioned characters in the future seasons of Ahsoka. Maybe Zeb. We can add Zeb to that list
Oh,
now.
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
So
That was fun.
that was, yeah. I feel like we need to do this segment more often, taking stuff we've talked about in the past and reviewing it in the present. It's cool to like see what you used to think
And l
and compare it to what you
and
know
and
now.
and watching it, we were just so confident, and then to be, like,
Yeah.
wrong. It's quite humbling.
Yeah, it definitely is. But yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime. If there's anything out there that you all listening or watching want us to react to that we have spoken about in the past, let us know down in the comments as well. And in regards to all those of you watching, we also do want to pose a question to you. Moving on from Ahsoka, what will you do now that Ahsoka is done? What are you most looking forward to? Or, did Ahsoka affect your view of Star Wars in a way where you're not sure if you're going to be moving on to something else Star Wars related? So, what will you do now that Ahsoka is over? Wait for season 2.
In 4 years.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, it's not that long. My goodness, I'll be so sad. Let us know down in the comments your responses to this question. And after having said that, Joey, I also do want to make a note of this might be the first time in many months that we've managed to actually get through completing a podcast in under an hour.
Finally, can it be done? It
Yes,
can be done.
it's possible, everybody. It's possible. We do also want to let you know that on next week's episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast, we are going to be doing our second ever comic book review. In the first comic book review that we did, it was a High Republic comic review. That was episode 42 of the Hoth Hangout podcast. We'll link it down in the show notes below. Give also letting us know behind the scenes that we still have 12 minutes to screw it up and not get under an hour. Uh, our second ever comic book review will be covering a Kanan Star Wars comic book. It's called Kanan the Last Padawan. So Joey and I are both going to read that here in the next week. We'll be talking about it during next week's Hoth Hangout podcast, giving our thoughts and breakdown. If any of you are interested in checking out the uh, Kanan Last Padawan comic book, Joey and I are both subscribers to the Marvel comic book app. Joey, what's the official name for the app
I
again?
think it's Marvel Unlimited, I believe?
Marvel Unlimited. Yes, yeah,
Not
that's what
not
it's called.
sponsored.
Not sponsored, but
But we'd love
uh,
to be sponsored, Marvel.
yeah. For anyone out there who loves comic books or loves Star Wars, you want to check out some Kanan the Last Padawan or any other Star Wars comics, Marvel Unlimited. Head to your App Store or Google Play Store, and the app will be there for you to download. If you're interested in reading along with us, we'll be talking about it during next week's podcast episode 54. Lastly, we do want to remind you once again that if you are not yet subscribed to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel, be sure to check us out on YouTube. We want to say a thank you to the 339 of you who are currently subscribed there. And if you're watching this or listening and you're not yet subscribed to the Hoth Hangout YouTube, definitely hit that big red subscribe button. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it so very much. Additionally, you can also email us all of your thoughts, questions, both Star Wars related and not Star Wars related, to hothhangout@gmail.com anytime you like, and we can display those thoughts and questions on the podcast if you're interested in having us talk about any of those here in this format. Additionally, if you're an audio podcast listener, thank you for listening on Spotify and Apple or anywhere else you get your podcast. Be sure to leave a 5-star review. We would also very much appreciate that. You can check us out on the socials, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or X at Hoth Hangout on each of the socials. Joey, you got any last thoughts on Ahsoka or anything else otherwise?
Well, this was fun as always. This was a little spin on what we've done in the past. We like to do reactions. Now we're doing reactions of ourselves, which I thought was pretty fun. I hope everyone had a good time. But yeah, under an hour, we got it.
We did it. We did it. Actually, stay tuned, everyone. In a future Hoth Hangout podcast episode, we're going to be reacting to our reaction of the reaction. Well, oh my gosh. For those who are audio podcast listeners, Gibbo giving us our brand new faces here. I'm Balin. I'm Hu Yang,
Hello.
or he's Hu Yang.
Hello.
This is good. We should do the rest of our podcasts like this.
I like
feel
this.
like
I like this very much.
it would work out well. Yeah. We should also mention at this point, thank you to Gibbo for producing the show, including the assets like you just saw on screen, all the videos that we reacted to, and for being the Morgan Elsbeth to our Hu Yang and Balin. Was Gibbo Morgan Elsbeth when he took the quiz?
Yeah, Gibbo got Morgan. Let's go.
Oh, man. That's an interesting one. Ouch.
R.I.P. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Shout out to George Lucas. Shout out to Dave Filoni. Shout out to Balin Skull, Hu Yang, and Morgan Elsbeth. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. We'll be back next week to talk some comic book review, the Kanan comic book that we'll be discussing, and we're looking very much forward to it. I don't know if that was a grammatically correct sentence, but nonetheless, Joey, you got any last thoughts before we sign off?
Sub 1 hour. We got to finish up. Let's do it.
Sub 1 hour. Thanks for all for listening. We'll catch you in the next one, and may the force be with you.